In October of 2024, two media review podcasters disappeared in the woods in Melbourne, Victoria, while shooting their next podcast. 1 week later, their footage was found.
Hi.
What a good intro. Anyway, welcome to Steph and Anja's Media Review, where we review literally anything. We are
Yes.
back. It's spooky season. After our little what's the word I'm looking for? Engagement with the AFL Grand Final.
Yes.
We are back on the horror movie train. Today we are covering the Blair Witch Project,
Ooh.
1999. Spooky.
It is spooky, and it's exciting because this movie is just absolutely life-changing for the film industry. I must say it.
True.
And
Revolutionary, actually. Like, sincerely.
Like, we've been so excited to talk about this. We've seen each other, be on this podcast, and we've been talking about this movie, and we're like, it's time.
It's time to do it. It's time to cover it.
Spooky season is upon us. We have to do it. So
exactly. So
to
kick off, before we jump into I guess some context, were you familiar with this movie before we covered it, or what was your level of familiarity with the Blair Witch Project?
I feel like, okay, it's a very unique experience, my one, because I didn't know it existed until I was probably 13 years old, and Matt Pat, from Game Theory, he had his film theory channel, and he posted a video about the Blair Witch and how, they were, conspiring to kill the girl and all that kind of stuff. Very fun theory. But I didn't know about the movie till then. I was also just a very scared little child at that age, so I never watched the movie until we were researching for this podcast, and I was like, okay, I have to watch it. Even though, I knew about the iconic, close-up scene and about, the house at the end of the movie. I knew about all of it, but I've never actually watched it. So, yeah, before this, reviewing and researching for this episode, it was just literally my knowledge was the Matt Pat video, pretty much.
Okay, perfect. Love it.
How about you, Steph?
And you know what? I feel like that's how a lot of things come about, through YouTube videos.
True.
For me, I don't really remember when I first kind of became aware of the movie, because I think for me it was kind of referenced in other things that I'd been watching. I think even The Simpsons, someone did a reference to the man standing in the corner, right? That is quintessentially the Blair Witch Project. So I feel like for context, I started getting into horror when I was about 14, 15 years old. I don't know really what sparked my interest in it, but obviously Blair Witch is kind of a big one, if kind of an underrated one, which is a really weird thing to say, but I feel like in the horror landscape, it's one that's not talked about as much these days, simply because there is a lot of found footage based media that is franchised in a way that this one isn't. So to answer your question, I feel like I've kind of always known snippets of the Blair Witch Project, but I probably wasn't fully across it until I was maybe a teenager.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff, for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so. So now, I guess we can jump in to the plot. What is it about?
What is the Blair Witch Project? Riddle me this. So essentially, it's the story of this urban legend, and specifically these three, I guess I don't remember if they're college kids or not, but they're young adults, and they are out to capture footage of this Blair Witch. It's based in Maryland. And they're, you know, the story goes that they go missing, and the footage that's captured in the movie is kind of all that remains of them. And I guess it's kind of intended to feel like you are part of the story, and that you found this footage, and you're kind of figuring out, putting the pieces into place about what happened to them, and why they went missing a year ago. So um, I think actually when I first watched this movie, I was actually like, wow, the Blair Witch was right to get these idiots, because all they do is complain.
Oh,
But I feel like it makes it so much more real in my mind, because I'm just like, I feel like I would also be complaining if like one of my friends was constantly sticking a camera in my face,
true.
and like you're not really getting anywhere with this project. It's cold, it's miserable, nothing's really happening until obviously stuff does start happening, and you're coming across all this creepy stuff. Like, I think if nothing else, it's a very real depiction of how people would behave in that situation, which I actually found to be quite interesting. um, I think it's a I think it's something that the horror genre often does quite well, is having very real depictions of human reactions to certain things. And I think the context of Blair Witch kind of being the first, like one of the first found footage movies, I think does it really well. And obviously, we'll get into it, but the marketing absolutely ties into that by kind of having, spoiler alert, the like characters and actors having the same names.
Oh, that I need to talk
Just
about
as an
that.
FYI. Yeah.
Yeah, because that like you obviously look into like as you're researching character. We always go through the main characters of the cast, well, the main
Mm-hmm.
cast and who they play,
Yes. Yeah.
and strangely, Heather Donahue. Like when you
Yeah.
search up the Blair Witch on Google, like the Google cast that shows up says a different name, but then
Oh, interesting.
her IMDb says Heather Donahue, and then Joshua Leonard and Michael C. Williams. But I found it
Yeah.
really because like the cast having their own names ties into the marketing so heavily, which
Yes.
we'll get into
Yeah.
later on. But I just found that so cool.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I also just think like the idea that it is like such a real piece, uh, it just intrigues me a lot.
Yeah,
I'm just impressed by it. Basically though, the kind of, to wrap it up, it kind of ends with one of the characters getting possessed, and it's kind of a bit up in the air about how it ends, but it's obviously like the three of the main characters are all, they all didn't make the cut, basically.
yep.
um, yeah, so it is like, I guess in terms of genre, obviously it's horror, but in terms of horror, it obviously has like subgenres, and it kind of sits in the same category. It's like a paranormal, um, like mystery type thing, in the same way that Paranormal Activity and I think Cloverfield would also be. It's
Yeah.
an unseen monster, um, that you can't visualize, so it's incredibly scary in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you think of the movie?
I mean, it was a little almost hard to watch, I almost found,
Mm,
because I
mm.
mean, at the start where they're interviewing all these people, it was just like, oh, I like
Yeah,
I like watching documentaries, but it was a boring documentary. Like,
yeah, yeah,
you get
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Like,
didn't it was a bit hard to sit through the start. I'm not gonna lie,
yes,
and
yeah.
then you get
I think
to
that's kind of the point. It's like it's student filmmakers, so it's
yeah.
meant to be a bit of a slog. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then you get to like when they're in like the forest and it's just like, okay, and then just arguing and complaining the whole time. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like I get the point. I get why, but it's just like
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is Miss Blair Witch? We need her.
We need her now. We needed her 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
But
in this movie.
yeah. No, but I did like the movie. Like I
Yeah.
love watching horror movies and like seeing the different ways like horror's like kind of shown and performed and stuff. So I
Yes.
liked it.
Yeah.
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 Not
Yeah.
nothing
I
more to
agree.
say on it.
Um, it's probably like it's not my favorite horror movie, but I was like, having not, I don't know if I'd ever watched it beforehand, but I was like, you know what? I can understand why this started kind of a movement.
Yeah.
um, because like if you haven't, if that's like the first thing you've seen in that genre, it's like, oh wow, that's actually like a very interesting way of going about it. I just personally found characters were a bit too real, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A bit too human.
Yeah. Um I do
Beautiful.
I have some facts, some fun facts
Yes,
about this
please.
movie. So, first of all, we should probably say who it was directed by. And this
Mhm.
was by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. They concocted this movie in their brains with a 35-page outline. Not a script, an outline, because all
Mhm.
dialogue was improvised for this movie,
Yes.
which shows the talent of the actors. Like the filming process for this movie, I don't know if you read up on it, Steph, but
Yeah.
they spent, a few days in the forest where they were just filming with their own cameras all day. Dialogue, they just
Yeah.
like had to stay in character the whole time. And like apparently they had like certain words they would say, so then everyone would know they're going out of character for a moment, and like it seemed very intense. Like even the way
Yeah.
they like received direction and stuff like that, where they went to head each day was very like strange, I
Yeah.
found.
Yeah.
Like I get
It's
it.
like sorry, I was just gonna say it's kind of
Yeah.
like method acting, but everyone is doing that. Where it's like you become the character,
Yeah.
but it's like if everyone joined in and believed you were that character. It does sound very intense. It sounds like a bit of a nightmare to me, to be honest.
It sounds like there's no off switch for like I think it was
Yeah.
like the 8 days they were filming. Like
Yes.
that must have been like so hard and like shows the talent of the actors as well to be able to be on that whole time and be a character that whole time. I know I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd probably break character every 5 seconds, but
Exactly. But you know what? They did it.
they did. And they I think they had a budget of just like $60,000.
Yeah.
That's
Budget.
crazy small, crazy small. The filming was done on the Greenway Trail, in Montgomery County, Maryland. So pretty much exactly where it was based. Um,
Mhm.
it grossed nearly 250 million like USD worldwide. Massive amounts of the monies. Um, and okay, this is a fun one. Out of
Yeah.
all three actors, only Joshua Leonard is the only one to pursue acting. Like, and he's still a
Oh
current
wow.
actor now. The other two
Yeah.
don't do acting anymore.
Interesting. I wanted to say as well, like just on that before, I kind of have some notes on production as well.
Yeah,
Um, but just on that, just briefly, I think that was a really big part of it, of why it worked. I guess why the marketing worked as well as it did is because the three of them were all unknowns. There was
yeah,
not a big name celebrity in this cast. So that's how, again, spoiler alert, they could convince people that it really happened, that it was real. So
yeah,
I I personally love it. As you can tell, I can't wait to start talking about it, but I do have a couple of other little fun facts and kind of notes. So just kind of on I guess some of the influences on the story. Um,
yeah,
so they used a lot of inspirations. So a lot of character names are like close to being anagrams. So Ellie Kedward, who is the Blair Witch, is Edward Kelly, who was a 16th century mystic. And then there's also Rustin Parr, who's the fictional 1940s child murderer that they discuss, is it started as an anagram for Rasputin, obviously the Russian.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, and yeah, just for some context as well, the Blair Witch is said to be the ghost of this Ellie Kedwood woman who's banished by the local town for practicing witchcraft. So obviously, they were also kind of implementing inspirations from the Salem witch trials and also the Crucible as well. So I just found that really interesting. There's also like a lot of influences from other horror movies and just other, I guess, even sci-fi movies as well. So The Shining, Alien, The Omen, and Jaws are all cited as having influence over the plot and kind of overall story of this film, which I found quite interesting because when you look for it, you can kind of see it.
Yeah. I'd agree. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's time that we talk about what we're both excited for.
Yes, keen.
The marketing, because there is like a lot to talk about.
Yes.
So I think, where do we start? I think where we start is where they premiered the movie, because that is
Yes.
probably the smallest thing, and then we can get to the big stuff.
Yep.
So they premiered the movie at the Sundance Film Festival at midnight on January 23rd, 1999, and then the movie released, I think, in theaters or whatever, released in June or July, so it had like 6
Mm-hmm.
months of time, which I thought that was pretty cool. But now we can jump into the best part, which was all the marketing.
All the marketing they did for it.
Yeah. So,
Now,
what do you want to start with, Steph?
oh, okay. So I would like to start with the missing person leaflets.
Yes.
So essentially, the main theme obviously was kind of establishing what's real and what's not, and kind of exploring those boundaries between the two. Um, and they wanted people to ask, is this real? Was this really found footage? Are these people really dead?
Yeah.
And to kind of fuel this on, they created these missing person pamphlets, shared photos from police reports. They had fake news stories from like local newspapers
Yeah.
published about these these three missing persons who were out shooting a student film and in the local area. And have you seen these people? Which really ties into like the word of mouth marketing because it got people to talk. It got people to really think about it,
Yeah.
and it was highly localized as well. So obviously, that's kind of like when you're doing something with such a tie into a local area, I think it's really great to get the other people involved. I would
Yeah.
be keen to know more about like how what people thought of it.
Yeah.
Kind of knowing, I guess, then that it was like kind of all fake and all staged for a movie. Like, I think for me personally, I'd be like, oh, feel like I've just had a bit of a prank pulled on me a
Yeah.
bit. Um, but yeah, so that's that one. I thought that was like a little one to kind of get us started.
Yeah.
Um, Similarly, they also used the internet a lot.
Yeah.
So they had, we'll get to the website in a second because I think that's a really big one. But I also wanted to briefly mention the message boards and kind of chat rooms because I think that
Yeah.
is so quintessentially like late 90s, early 2000s. I am obsessed. Because obviously, like, it wasn't really a thing back then to use the internet as part of your marketing, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Um, but the marketers kind of planted seeds in a lot of online chat rooms, um, directing people to the sites. They used the missing persons reports and photos
Yeah.
and kind of shared them around, and kind of pretended to be like an average user, which I found really interesting and kind of blended in.
Yeah.
Um, and fun fact, they even manipulated the IMDb records. So if you looked up the actors on the site, their bio information would list them as missing and
Yep.
presumed dead,
Yep.
which is crazy. That would never fly these days.
No, but I
um,
thought that was so cool. I actually have we can kind of start already with how the movie
yes.
influenced today because I already can
Yeah.
think of one specific example of where the whole chat rooms, like infesting things in the chat rooms, how that
Mm,
affected popularity and stuff like that. So think TikTok nowadays. Steph, do you
mhm.
know the song Forget You? And it goes like ABCDE
Yes. Yeah,
Forget
yeah,
You.
yes.
That song. I don't know if
By
you ever
Gail.
saw the promo for that song, but
Yeah.
she was just a girl on TikTok, and you
Yeah.
saw the process of her writing the song, and then like, oh, I'm gonna record a bit of it. Here's what it sounds like. Oh, guys, I've
Hmm.
recorded the song, and then releases it. And this kind of makes me think of like the whole message boards plan because it's the exact same tactic.
Yes. Yeah.
And like,
But I think that the core difference now versus then is like it was so unknown back then.
yeah, yeah,
It wasn't like a thing where people could just go onto the internet and pretend to be something that
yeah,
they actually like were already well aware of. I think just in terms of like music, I see a lot of like up and coming TikTok artists being called like industry plants,
yeah,
which is essentially what the marketers of the Blair Witch Project were
yeah.
in these chat rooms. So yeah, I think it is like a really strong comparison.
I
Absolutely.
I think, but like the Blair Witch, definitely like this tactic they've used
Mm,
has like you can see the influence it has because so many
yes.
like artists, for example, have used this now, and like that's a
Yes.
like a current. I say current, it was like 2 years ago, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a current case of it being used now, and I think it's so cool that it's like this was something so new in 1999 and now in 2024 look at like all these things being used because they used it.
Yeah. Even so much as like I don't know, like A-list celebrities going undercover on Twitter
Yeah,
and like talking to fans, like that is the same tactic here as like the Blair Witch marketers were using. So
yeah,
yeah, there absolutely is influence, especially in the online space. And that has never been more prevalent than with the website that they
yes.
created for the Blair Witch. um, so again, like just again, some context here is like internet was still very, very new at the time. It was not a thing to have a website for your movie. Um, but the site itself, and I'm pretty sure it's still up. Like you can go and look at it. I'm pretty sure. Um, but the idea of it that it kind of ties in with the movie itself is that it is made by these three students who don't really know a lot about building a website. So it's very simple. It's very like clear cut.
Yeah,
Um, they've got like details on the Blair Witch, and kind of there's info on the filmmakers as well, like about the three of them. Um, and it came out before the movie, and that's kind of where like a lot of traffic was being directed, which again was not really a thing at the time.
yeah,
Whereas nowadays it is a thing. Oh, it's not really a thing now. I feel like in like the 2010s, it was a thing to go on like moviename.com.
yeah,
I feel like now it's more like you just look it up on social media. But I think there was that really like core point in time where every movie had its own website.
yeah,
Shout out to Blair Witch for kind of doing that and making it such like an interesting user experience. Um, yeah, I personally find it so cool that like they thought to do that and actually like yeah, again being really innovative and driving people back to the website rather than I guess your stock standard call to action of go see the movie or buy a ticket. Like, yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it was really cool because with like I found it super interesting when they were directing people to the website over just saying go see the movie.
Mm.
I found that really interesting. Like I've read that like I can't remember where I read it, but they had like all their different promotional stuff, especially getting really close,
Mm.
just like pushing towards the website. They had a Variety magazine ad for the movie saying go to the website,
Yeah.
not go see the
Yes.
movie, go to the
Go see the
website.
movie.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
crazy because obviously they want you to see the movie, but they're saying go to the website, get intrigued, and then you'll find out there's a movie kind of thing.
Mm,
I
mm.
thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it kind of ties in really well for all of the other media channels they activated, because it's like, yeah, you've obviously got your magazines, but they would have also had like the trailer, which would have, I mean, I don't know if it would have run on TV, to be
I was
honest.
actually going to say about the trailer, it was not released
Yeah.
to traditional media outlets.
Yeah. I
So
mean, why would it be?
why would it be? But that's a big play as well. Like they didn't have
Yes.
they didn't use traditional media. Like and look at the amount of like
Look
talk
at
it
the
got.
impact. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to say, like, it's almost solely through word of mouth and like early adopters of the internet
Yeah.
that really drove the impact of this movie.
Yeah.
So I found that very, very cool.
Yeah. I was gonna say like the key like takeaways from their marketing
Mm-hmm.
campaign would probably be
Yeah.
like the utilization of the internet and like using the web because like it had never been used before. Then they
Mm-hmm.
like created such detailed and even though they weren't very detailed, but detailed backstories for the people in the movie and for
Yes.
other people to dive into like
Mm.
drove this because the actors, people they knew, were like talking to their parents, their loved ones,
Yeah.
going like, "What do you mean they're missing?" Like it
What do you
drove
mean they're presumed dead? Yeah. Yeah.
exactly so much attention, and it like you said earlier, Steph, it blurred the lines between fiction and reality, and it made it all that
Mm.
more intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like,
I did want to quickly mention return on investment, because
oh
when you're talking
yes,
about marketing, a lot of the time people want to quantify it into a set number, even though that is often quite difficult to do. So, as we said, the actual production cost was about $25,000. And then on top of that, I believe was marketing and additional spend, bringing it up to, I think you said
yeah,
60,000,
yeah,
which is not a lot. It went on to earn $250 million. So, oh, it is well, this article that I was looking at
yeah.
was a few years old now, so it may have changed, but it was at the time the sixth highest grossing independent film and was the second most successful film of all time in terms of profit.
Wow.
Um, it actually trailed behind Paranormal Activity in that category. So that's really quite an interesting fact in of itself, because it's like clearly found footage as a whole is something that can be produced fairly cost efficiently. And if it's done correctly, then obviously you can make a lot of money off of it. And
Yeah,
that's why we saw a lot of found footage movies in like the 2010s, is people wanted to capitalize in the same way. Um, and you know what? It does, as we kind of talked about, it does continue to hold the prize of being the first like successful venture into usage of the internet as part of marketing.
yeah,
um it really helped generate that online hype, that buzz, and clearly it succeeded, and because it made a lot of profit, like
yeah,
it's a win-win. um and I think that ultimately is kind of the Blair Witch's legacy, much more so than any, I think, of the references, the characters, but the marketing does carry it through.
it really does.
So love it, love
Yeah.
it.
But I think that kind of wraps us up for the marketing. So, Steph, I think you should introduce the next segment this time.
Yes. So I have some news, guys. There were only 44 fanfics available on Blair Witch. Mostly because they were crossovers or those random stories that just have like a ton of fandoms all in one. That's fine. I'm putting together a new segment. I don't know what it's called. Letterbox.
Ooh.
Uh, Letterboxd is, for those who don't know, Letterboxd is a review platform where you can kind of log the movies you watch.
Ooh.
And the joke is, though, is that people can see your reviews, and a lot of the times people are quite silly with them. So I'm going to read off some Blair Witch reviews because
Ooh.
there were 85,000 reviews for the Blair Witch. So Anja, I'm going to ask you to tell me if you think the review is a good review or if they didn't think much of the movie.
Okay.
Rating is out of 5 stars. I will consider, just for some context, I will consider anything above 3 stars good.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay, first one. And this is the top rated review because you can like tell them if you think it's helpful.
Yeah.
It took me 20 additional minutes to finish this because about halfway through my television turned itself off and I just thought they'd put the camera in their pocket. Is that a good or bad review?
I give that 5 stars. That's amazing. They genuinely
Yeah,
sat there for 20 minutes watching their TV off.
it's such a good visual.
I love it.
No, sadly, they did not think very highly of the Blair Witch Project. They
I
only gave
mean,
it 2.5 stars.
is it kind of their fault that they don't like it, or?
Yeah, whose fault is it? Really, really. Okay, next review. It's maybe good that these guys got lost in Eden or whatever, because before stuff goes wrong, it seems like their documentary was probably gonna suck.
I mean, they're not wrong. I also think that. But I'm
Yeah,
gonna guess this review was 2 stars.
it's 3.5. It's close. That means like they thought the movie was like okay.
Yeah,
They gave it an extra half star that they didn't have to.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay. I'll do 2 more reviews.
Okay, I'm ready.
Miss Blair Witch decided she couldn't handle the sound of these bitches constantly arguing anymore. And you know what? Good for her.
That one eats. I love that one. Okay. That one's actually kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna give that one 4 stars.
Okay.
I don't know.
Anja, you are correct.
Yes!
You win.
Yes. All right. Last one. I'm ready.
Okay. Last one. Okay. I gotta find a good one.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. With how annoying these characters were, I was rooting for the witch.
I love these. Oh, okay. They were rooting for the witch. 3 stars.
I'm sorry. It was only 2. It's close enough.
Hey, I got 1 out of 4. I will take
You
it.
got one. Yeah. And you know what? It's arguably the best review. It's probably my favorite one.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Miss Blair Witch. So true.
That's so good. I love the internet.
Oh, me too. But yes, shall we say our final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. I thought, like, going into this, I hadn't seen the Blair Witch. I knew about it from Matt Pat's videos, but I hadn't really known much else beyond that. I I liked the movie. It was okay, but I loved the marketing. I loved learning all about it. How they
Mm,
really changed marketing for movies with this just like small budget film. With like the missing posters and all this drama about the actors, it just surged so much, and it just I kind of wish I was there in the moment, just like
yeah,
in with
yeah.
the goss, everyone being like, "Oh, where do you think they are?" Like, but I can imagine now if someone could do it well enough. Imagine that kind of thing spreading on TikTok
Mm,
nowadays. If it was
mm,
convincing enough, I can imagine. I can imagine.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's my thoughts.
yeah.
I love the marketing. I thought it was so interesting to read up on. I think it was definitely one of the most in-depth kind of interesting marketing episodes we've had, because a lot of
Yes,
the
I
stuff
would
we've
agree.
done, it's pretty basic, but this one was so intricate and different. So I
Mm,
definitely loved doing this episode.
yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree. I think movie is fine. I can understand like from a genre perspective, like having started a lot of that and kicked off like the found footage phenomena, I suppose. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree that the marketing is by far the most interesting part of the film and like the filmmaking process in this case. Yeah, like I would do a lot to have experienced the marketing as this came out.
Yes.
Because honestly, I don't think we will see something like this. Um, like it's just so many. I feel like too many people have tried to do similar that now I feel like a lot of people are expecting it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think because it was so yeah innovative and revolutionary for what it was at the time. Um, it was kind of like a once in a lifetime moment, and they nailed it.
They
So
really did.
shout out to the marketers, to the filmmakers for real. It was, yeah, you did a
Genius.
smashing job, guys.
It was
Excellent
genius.
work.
But yeah. So that wraps us up for today's episode. So if you liked it, give us a like, give us a comment, leave us a rating. We love feedback. We actually got feedback on our AFL episode. Um, so thank you. We are definitely looking into those improvements, I'd say. I mean, we love getting good comments. We got our first hate comment as well. I think that's a
Woohoo!
celebration, Steph, by the way.
That's funny. Yeah,
But yeah, keep leaving comments, guys. We get excited to read them, and we just
yeah.
love like getting to talk about what we love talking about. And if you guys want to listen, then listen. I think is what I've got to say on that. We have an Instagram
So true.
and a TikTok. You can check us out on there if you want. There's some silly little videos on some older content. Steph and Anja's Movie Reviewed is the handle, or one word. And you can also check out our podcast on Spotify. That's where we actually started this whole thing. So if you want to check it out, the link's below. And then if you're on Spotify, hello. Glad you're still
Check us
there.
out on YouTube.
Check us out on YouTube, subscribe. uh, but I think I've covered everything.
Yes. If nothing else, outro.